Hey everybody, and welcome to Badlands Weekly, where this week we're doing something special and we're talking strictly racing at Badlands Motor Speedway. Season championships coming up this weekend. We've got a lot of tight battles going on. Saturday, September 10th and Sunday, September 11th. And here's the great news, it's totally free for everyone in the grandstands on Saturday, September 10th. A couple of great battles, like I said, going on. One in the 410 Outlaw Sprint Cars. Mark Dobmeyer from North Dakota has pretty much led that class all season long. But Tim Kading from San Jose, California, who's in second, he's still within striking distance, and so that's going to be a fun one to watch on Saturday the 10th. See those two guys battle out for some big money. There's also a couple of really close battles going on in the late model street stocks. The micro sprint cars are close, so a lot of money on the line this weekend. We'll see what happens. We hope you can join us for free on Saturday the 10th. And again, it's half-price family night on Sunday the 11th. A lot of history at Badlands Motor Speedway. It opened in 1954, and we put together a really cool documentary showing the history of the racetrack. Have a look.
With twin action cameras covering the action, we caught the races. Thought you'd enjoy seeing them too. Won't you join us now then as we return for the championship races? All right then, turn them loose, let's go, go, go!
You got to be on the edge of your seat, you got to be up on that steering wheel that entire 25 lap race or 30 lap race, whatever it is. There's no time for sitting back and relaxing.
Never been somewhere that I've left there so happy before and then sometimes so angry.
Just growing up at it, obviously it was great when I was a kid. I feel like kids can still show up today and have a good time. It's one of those things that's not just suited for sprint cars, it's also suited for other forms of racing.
Stand by any of the streets that come down Split Rock and which turns into Highway 11. I mean, it's a steady stream of cars coming that way.
When I was a little kid, Husets Speedway was the Indy 500 to me.
Then he stopped digging. He said, nah, I think I'm just gonna call it Husets Speedway.
Carved out of a soybean field by farmer Till Huset, Husets Speedway has always been known for its thrills and spills, for its drivers riding the fine line of bravery and insanity, and for many race fans, it's where they first found their love of the sport of auto racing.
When I was like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old and stuff like that, a lot of the neighborhood kids were, their parents were kind of into going to the races, so a lot of us kids like to go. And Husets was close, obviously. It's on a Sunday night. It's something to do before we had to go back to school on Monday. And a lot of the neighborhood kids, we'd all go to Husets and watch the races. Obviously, the races were fun, or part of the fun. The other fun part was, you had options to, you had this, so to say, as you want to call it, a big playground to run around in.
So there's a little teaser about the history of Badlands Motor Speedway on our documentary. We'll have a lot more when we come back to this special edition of All Racing on Badlands Weekly.
Win big, your way at the Fort Randall Casino, 10 miles west of Wagner on Highway 46.
The earth will tremble and bodies will shake as Outlaw Tractor Pull Series National Finals comes to Badlands Motor Speedway. Saturday, September 24th for the first time ever in South Dakota. The top tractors in the country going for the biggest prize money of the year and all live on national television. Our last event of the year will be a big one, so get your tickets early. The Outlaw Tractor Pull Series National Finals at Badlands Motor Speedway, Saturday, September 24th. More info at badlandsmotorspeedway.com.
big your way at the Fort Randall Casino, 10 miles west of Wagner on Highway 46.
Welcome back to Badlands Weekly in this special edition of All Things Racing. Husets Speedway was actually built in 1954, and my father was there that day when the blade first hit the ground to start building the racetrack. He's become a very well-known racing historian. Let's hear more from him in our documentary.
In the summer of 1954, racing historian Tom Savage, just 17 at the time, made his way to the outskirts of Brandon for what would be the first of his many visits to the legendary Speedway. There, he met Speedway founder Till Huset.
The most daunting thing about the entire day was coming down that hill, because it wasn't graded like it is now, and it was almost straight down. But I went down there, and that's before they had even opened. He was still working. And Till was out there on the front stretch with an old-fashioned post hole digger. And he'd bang that thing down there and twist it back and forth and pull it up and empty the dirt out. And when he got it down to whatever depth it was that he wanted, he would take a railroad tie and stick it in there, and tamp all the dirt around it and go down 3 feet and start over again. That was going to be the front stretch crash wall. And I was just talking to him, you know, and I asked him, among other things, I said, what are you going to call this racetrack? Is it going to be the Split Rock Speedway? Or is it going to be the Indian Mound Speedway because of all the Indian mounds around there? He said, and then he stopped digging. He said, nah. He said, I think I'm just going to call it Husets Speedway.
And with that, Husets Speedway was born. It was a primitive existence when the track first opened. There wasn't much on the site. The grounds were home to only a racetrack, and a strangely shaped one at that. There was no wall, no grandstands, no lights, no concessions.
So he hired a guy from Laverne who had a big Caterpillar bulldozer. And Till told him to start scraping the top off of that soybean field and make a racetrack there. And just bank it up in the corners. They didn't use no surveyors, nothing. They just heaped all that dirt up. And in the early days, the fourth turn was about 5 feet wider than the rest of the racetrack. There's still a little bit, you can tell a little bit, it's still a little bit wider, but when the guys would come off of the fourth turn, more than one of them told me it's like coming off the fourth turn and driving into a funnel, because the track came from this wide, this got narrower as it went down the front stretch. As a result, in the 50s, a lot of race cars got upside down coming off that fourth turn.
Although the early days were loud and dusty, Husets Speedway was off and running. But they also had competition. Exactly 1 week after Husets opened on May 23, 1954, Sioux Speedway opened just 3 miles west of the track.
For everything that Husets didn't have, Sioux Speedway did have. Had a guardrail, had a fence, had lights, had modern restrooms. It was the very latest thing in technology for dirt tracks of the day. So Till was up against that to begin with. And on top of that, he had to run his races in the afternoon, and the dust was just terrible, horrible. You couldn't see anything. So the spectator count, of course, fell off really quick, and so did the car count, because the guys couldn't see where they were going. And while all that was happening, Sioux Speedway just prospered. Unbelievable heights. They had full grandstands, they had full pits full of race cars. They had such big crowds that they had to go across what is now a 6-mile road, but back in those days it was just a gravel road. They went across the road and leased some land so they would have room to park more spectators' cars. The place was just packed.
Desperate to compete with the new competition, Huset began updating the track by adding lights and even reforming the racing surface to a 1/5 mile perfect circle in 1955. He decided to go to Friday nights, but nothing compared to the popularity of Sioux Speedway.
At the end of the 55 season, he threw in the towel. So in 1956 and in 1957, not a wheel turned out there. And in fact, you couldn't even tell there was a racetrack down there if you stopped on the highway and looked down, because it was all weeds, high weeds, and Till had some of his old tractors and trucks down there. You couldn't even tell where the racetrack used to be.
With Husets Speedway closed for 2 seasons, Sioux Speedway truly hit its stride, racing in front of big crowds and large car counts. But not everything was perfect.
Sioux Speedway was a hot spot on Sunday nights for Sioux Falls. By 1957, the modified fields and modified cars were starting to dwindle a little bit because it was kind of expensive. You know, some of those guys spent up to $500 on one of those old 37 Ford Coupes. So it was starting to dwindle a little bit. So they introduced a stock class, strictly stock, no modification, in the summer of 1957. And that made the modified drivers mad. Imagine that, a race car driver getting mad about what's going on. Because now they had the split a purse that they didn't think was enough to begin with. So there was some unrest at the end of the 57 season.
With the current uncertainty of payouts at Sioux Speedway, the drivers were looking for an alternative, and Husets Speedway suddenly had new life. The start of the 1958 season saw big changes in the local racing scene.
The drivers boycotted Sioux Speedway, and they said they wanted a guaranteed purse of $1,000 or they weren't going to race anymore. Unless they got $1,000, they weren't going to race. And they didn't. They left. They met the next Monday night at one of the meeting rooms at the old YMCA, and they formed the Sioux Falls Stock Car Association. They sold shares, and they got enough money to buy what was left of Husets Speedway from Till Huset. It was just a weed-infested mess. So they went out there and they went to work. They cut out all the weeds. They cut that 5th mile out of the infield. It was in July of 1958. The present Husets Speedway was reincarnated.
Sioux Speedway closed, although the remnants of the track still stand today. With the competition now shut down, the first order of business for the newly formed Stock Car Association was to hire a promoter. Enter one of the track's most polarizing figures, Fred Buckmiller.
Fred Buckmiller, quite a character. Fred took over in 1958 when the track was resurrected. He became the promoter with no previous experience, but he knew that he had to control the racers, and he wanted them to start at 8 o'clock. And 8 o'clock didn't mean 8:05, it meant 8 o'clock. And he was a tyrant. He was an iron-fisted tyrant. And nobody questioned him because he was a commanding figure. He was 6.5 feet tall, 250 pounds. He dodged bullets at Iwo Jima. So he wasn't easily intimidated, and what he said went. Everybody talks about Big Bill France from NASCAR and how tough he was. Compared to Fred Buckmiller, Bill France was a kindergarten teacher.
His presence in the Sioux Falls area was obvious as crowds, cars, and even media attention was focused squarely on Husets. His reach extended outside the racetrack and into the sports department at South Dakota's largest daily newspaper.
Husets got a lot of publicity back in the 50s on the sport pages, and it was good publicity. I said, how'd you do that? And Bruce said, because he came up there one day and said, if we don't start putting Husets results in there, he's going to burn the damn place down.
Buckmiller was a clear success at Husets, and the track prospered. There were many nights when 90 cars of the same class squeezed into the tiny infield. He was a showman and did everything he could to make going to the racetrack a fun night. One of his signature rules caught the attention of tracks around the country.
So to dress up the thing, he says, you guys have got to all wear white pants and white shirts in the infield. In a dirt racetrack working on cars, they got to wear white pants and white shirts, and of course they objected. And he says, you either wear white pants and white shirts, or you don't race here. And Fred used to tell those guys, the reason you got to wear white pants is the insurance company won't sell us any insurance if you're not dressed in white because it's so dark out there. Well, years later, in fact, I visited him up in the hospital just before he died. He said the insurance company didn't even know anything about that. They had nothing to do with that. He said, I just wanted to dress it up a little bit.
Fred Buckmiller helped turn Husets Speedway into the venue it is today.
In his day, what was happening at Husets Speedway was getting a lot of attention all over the country. And people, race fans, were hearing about Husets Speedway. You know, the huge crowds they had and all the fields of cars that they had. So Fred put the name of Husets Speedway out all over the country in the late 50s, early 60s, up into the 70s. Everybody knew about Husets Speedway. And he had a famous saying. He had a pit meeting every night before the races started, and he says when he got done with the rules that they were going through, he would always say, remember guys, we're a bunch of poor bastards in a rich man's sport.
As Husets Speedway continued to grow, so did the development of the modern race car. The 1960s saw the development of the super modified cars, and by the end of the decade, cars with tubular frames and fiberglass bodies started to invade Husets. The Speedway was now a hotspot in the Sioux Falls community.
You know, that was a mainstay of Sioux Falls. I mean, you know, back in the bread and butter winners of Sioux Falls was Morrell's, John Morrell's, and Husets Speedway came out of John Morrell's. There was a lot of workers that came out of there. They had race cars. Fans came from the east side of Sioux Falls, and then it just exploded and got bigger.
By 1980, sprint cars were introduced at Husets against Buckmiller's wishes. He saw 2 seasons of sprint car racing at the track before his death in 1982. With the death of the track's leader, the Stock Car Association turned to 2 men to fill the role of one. Bill Leash, and Ed Flowers. Sprint car racing flourished at the track in the late 1980s and early 1990s.
Bob Vielhauer is from outside of Kansas City, so it's quite a ways for him to go up to Husets, but I'd been pestering him about going. I'd been there and it was a great track, and I never had an opportunity to race there. So I talked him into going, and I think I told him, he asked me how big it was, and I said, I think it's big 3/8. And we got there, and the first thing he said, this is no 3/8, this is a damn quarter mile, which it's not.
The Sioux Falls Stock Car Association took the track from a floundering facility to one of the top sprint car tracks in the country. The association did its job, and now it was time for a new ownership group to take the helm. Clarence Rubin and sons Steve and Greg purchased Husets from the Stock Car Association, but the sale didn't transpire without some controversy.
It wasn't for sale. It was not an advertised sale, and we decided that let's make a proposal and see what happens.
But the Rubin proposal wasn't the only one on the table.
It was a sealed bid. They made an exception. They said, okay, we'll accept bids on selling the racetrack. Well, not a lot of people knew a lot about it, and we were pretty much didn't know a lot about it either, So we gave them a proposal, and the management that they had there made a proposal too at the same time that they had in place, and they never opened their bids up, but they opened our bid up, and then they tabled it right away, and so that was making me think that their bid wasn't high enough. So we came back 30 days later with another proposal, and they pretty much had to accept it then.
It was time to go to work, but with what?
The first thing we needed to do was go buy a hammer. I mean, I didn't realize a place could be in business for as many years that they ran it. They never had a hammer or a shovel or a wheelbarrow, or it was like, oh man, how do you operate without a nail? And so there wasn't a lot left when we got there.
Husets has become a bucket list racetrack for many famous sprint car drivers. But in 1988, a plan by the Stock Car Association would have forever altered sprint car racing in the area.
My dad being on the board of directors, we pretty much knew a lot of the board of directors and what their plans were for the 1988 season. And they had planned on not running 410 sprint cars. They were going to drop them, and they were going to go just to 360s. And that kind of pushed us even more, because that's kind of what I like to go out and watch, were the sprint cars out there. And so that just kind of fired us up a little bit more to try to pull this off and get it bought at the time.
Over the years, Mother Nature has toiled with the racetrack as nearby Split Rock Creek has busted its banks on a number of occasions. But in the early 90s, the creek nearly won its 62-year battle with the track.
People probably don't realize this, that I think it was like 92 or 93. We had a dam break in Minnesota and flooded us out and pretty much wiped us out. We were just at the point where we were putting all our any money we made was into the facility and the bank payments and all that. And here we get this flood and we had nothing left. We had nothing. There was no tractor, no road grader. It was all washed away and ruined. It was all gone. Everything was just poof.
But as it's always been, the racing community rallied behind the ownership group. Racing continued, and it's gotten stronger ever since. With the quality of racing that the track has seen over the years, there's also been many spills and thrills. With its imposing wall, Husets has had its history of chewing up race cars.
Husets Speedway is one of them tracks where there ain't too many people that come in without a lot of experience anyway that can just roll out there and start rattling off wins. It's one of them tracks where it's got to eat you up a couple times before you get your speed. Towards the beginning stages there, I did wreck a few cars there.
Sprint car racing took off at Husets, and it's been a favorite stop for many drivers around the country. Legends such as Steve Kinzer, Doug Wolfgang, Sammy Swindell, and Donnie Schatz have all turned laps at the Speedway.
It was awesome. It was a thrill. It was the first kind of bigger racetrack where you go to where I'd ran a few outlaw shows, but it was the first time I got to a track where, just on a weekly show you had, I remember like Terry McCarl, Don Dowd Jr., a lot of guys like that were there on a weekly show, and it was first time where you kind of ran there, ran time trials, and the whole large program situation. And it was, that wall was on the outside, but I was used to running the cushion up here at River City, so that didn't really scare me too much. But it was just intimidating rolling into the pits the first time with all the big names there, and knowing it was a high level of competition at that track.
Former Daytona 500 and Indianapolis 500 starters have even raced at the track, like Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, Kyle Larson at Daytona, and Brian Clausen, Roger Rager, and Steve Kinzer at Indianapolis.
Casey Kane came in when I was in my prime kicking butt and kicked our butt. So I think to this day, Casey still mentions that in some of his interviews. That was one of his favorite wins. But Again, it looked easy on paper, but once you got there, it's a very difficult track to master, and the local guys there have always been pretty tough.
Husets Speedway has also been the home to arguably the finest race rescue team in the country. Pat Major created a safety team at Husets in 1976, and now his son Jay heads the MedStar Race Rescue Team that travels all over the country training racetracks on safety procedures. And now, the newest change has been ushered in with the purchase of the track to Chuck Brennan. The future is bright at the track with massive upgrades planned.
Excited to see everything come together. You know, we're doing the new stands, we're doing new power, new plumbing, new VIP towers. We're doing so much. To see it all come together just like at Badlands Pond is what we're all looking forward to.
The new look also brings a new name, but it's not the first name change. The track used to be called the Husets Speed Bowl in the 1950s, and it nearly changed again in 1988.
We're going to change it to Reuben Speedway. Why not? You know, I mean, it's today's world is made up with corporate sponsorship where you don't exist.
We've got more to come on Badlands Weekly of this special edition of All Things Racing. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
The earth will tremble and bodies will shake as Outlaw Tractor Pull Series National Finals comes to Badlands Motor Speedway. Saturday, September 24th for the first time ever in South Dakota. The top tractors in the country going for the biggest prize money of the year and all live on national television. Our last event of the year will be a big one, so get your tickets early. The Outlaw Tractor Pull Series National Finals at Badlands Motor Speedway, Saturday, September 24th. More info at badlandsmotorspeedway.com.
Welcome back to Badlands Weekly. It's been fascinating sitting out at the racetrack the last 12 months and watching the transformation of the facility. It's an amazing place, and we hope that you can join us this weekend for our season championships. Saturday, September 10, free grandstand admission for everyone, and then on Sunday, September 11th, that's half-price family night just like it's been all year before. It's going to be fun on that Sunday night to watch the championship battle in the USRA Hobby Stocks between Chad Kunert and Dustin Gold Bronson. It's just amazing that after this whole summer, those two guys are tied going into the championship. So it's going to be fun to watch those guys battle. Thanks for watching this edition of Badlands Weekly, where we've been talking all things racing. And now the rest of our documentary.
$6 million in renovations are planned for the Speedway, and once completed, Badlands Motor Speedway will be one of the top dirt tracks in the country.
My favorite part is just how excited the drivers are, how many commitments we've had from some of the biggest drivers around that they're going to be racing Badlands, some of them Saturday and Sunday. Everybody's excited about this Saturday night move. And I just can't wait to see the drivers hit the track, the lights turn on, the fans all over the stands full of people.
Chuck's going to make it a beautiful facility, and how can that be bad, you know, for anybody? So I don't think racing's ever going to go away. I think Brandon certainly knows how big of a gem they have sitting there, the money that brings into that area, Sioux Falls and Brandon's just going to grow bigger. It's time for some new blood maybe to put some money into it, and seats are so expensive, and lighting and those big billboards are so expensive. It's awesome that Chuck, you know, cares enough to do it.
It's going to take a lot of money, and it was money that we probably wouldn't have had to do it, where he's going to be able to put in there and take it to the next level. And what that'll do is it'll create a brand new race fan, a brand new base, and that's what we need.
Now moving forward with the Badlands deal, obviously like anything else, I mean, I think if you race for points, and there's going to be a first-time champion for Badlands, so I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some people looking at that. That'll be really cool to be the first champion of Badlands Speedway. So I think it'll be an exciting year moving forward to the new facility. Obviously, a over the winter and into the spring, getting that thing all. I think people are going to be really interested to come out there and check it out. Said a lot of racers across the country have inquired to me about it, and they think it's really cool that there's a guy out there willing to do what he's doing and spending the money he is investing into a facility like that just to have a race for the racers and the fans.
I am extremely excited about the future here at Badlands. In my eyes, this is like the purse increase, all the facility updates and everything he's doing is just amazing. And I think it's definitely a positive for sprint car racing. And I'm very interested to see what the future is going to bring here. Everything's looking very positive, and I just can't wait to get going to the season and start doing it.
You have 42 events. You have 4 major concerts coming. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming. Plus, not only are they going to get things here, a meal, and whatnot, many of them are going to stay. Many of them are going to book a room at the 2 hotels that we have. And that means they're going to stay another day. That means they're going to have to go eat breakfast. They're going to have to go eat lunch. They're going to hang around, especially if there's a race that day. They're going to stay for 2 full days. They are going to be part of this community. And they're going to spend money in this community. And the sales tax stays here. So yeah, 42 events is an exciting time.
You want to be able to get people to the racetrack, and people evolve just like race cars evolve, so do the fans. And with the improvements, they're going to have great bathroom facilities for the ladies.
You know, I have to think back to 1954, what it looked like then, and to what it's going to look like. It's almost unbelievable. It's like looking at Sioux Falls, city of Sioux Falls in 1954, and now how much it has grown and prospered. It will be the same way with that racetrack. It's almost inconceivable that it's going to be where it came from and where it's going to be. But it's going to be wonderful to have it updated, have some big events there. I look forward to it.
I'm Ron Keel, the Metal Cowboy, here to rock some legal talk with our good buddy Scott Hoy from Hoy Trial Lawyers. Good to see you, Scott.
Good to see you, Ron.
I know a lot of your clients have questions about workers' comp.
Steve contacted me on a work comp question. He said that he had a slip and fall at work and that work comp took care of it. And he said, do I have an independent claim for the slip and fall? Against your employer, no. Your only claim is for workers' compensation. But if you have an injury while you're on the job that's caused by somebody else, then you still have that claim. But against your employer, you only have workers' compensation.
If you have any questions about workman's compensation or work-related injuries, get in touch with Scott Hoy, HoyTrialLawyers.com. I like him. You can trust him.
Thank you, Ron.
You got it.